Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome back to our Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz to a realistic map of meaning. Always a great class. Let's see how Rabbi Shlomo's doing tonight. Shalom, Rabbi Schwartz. So good to be with you. I'm going to turn the class over to you. And
Thank you. Well, yeah, I'm going to turn it back to you in a minute, but we've started a course on Shulchan Baruch, Order Your Blessings, and we've got up to chapter 3, which is going to introduce a new topic. It'll be quite different from what you're used to, but then it'll take maybe more than one night to do that, and we only have Sunday night this week. And this Thursday, the reason we're not having classes Wednesday and Thursday is because of Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, which is the saddest day in the Jewish year. It commemorates the destruction of the temple, the exile of the Jewish people. It took us 2,000 years to get back. And we're trying to see if we can rebuild the temple one way or another. But I have a video that I made about 5 years ago on the destruction. This is a 25-hour fast. Only one other day like it in the year, that's Yom Kippur. This is even sadder than Yom Kippur because of the destruction, and it has some interesting messages. It's well, that's why we commemorate it every year, because it has to do not just with the destruction, but why it came about and what we have to do about it, as you'll see in this video. So I'm going to give it over to Dan and ask him to run the video. It's on YouTube, and might. If you're listening closely, Dan, I might jump in and say something while the video is playing, but otherwise we'll let it go.
okay, I've got you in a
Take the
sub
whole
screen.
session.
I can put you in a
Hello,
picture.
my name is Shlomo Schwartz. I'm an Orthodox rabbi, and I like to present Jewish teachings in a way that uncovers the common sense and wisdom that lies behind them, in a way that everybody can appreciate. Because understanding pierces the darkness in much the same way that my grandson, Yoni Stern, his voice pierces the heavens in this song. Can you hear his voice? Is it coming across there? I can't hear it. Oh, I just love that. Okay, well,
This
okay, there was
Jewish
a
teaching
soundtrack
will
that I
give
think
you
come out right
unusual
here.
insights into hate, the first interpersonal relationship. We concentrate on hate before love, and you may be surprised to know we spend 3 weeks every year grieving the results of hate. These 3 weeks start with an all-day fast. We close our mouths from eating or drinking all day, and it just goes downhill from there. We stop grooming or celebrating ourselves, even weddings. In the last week or so, we stop indulging ourselves, no swimming or meat eating. And finally, another fast even longer, no eating or drinking all night and all day. That one really makes an impression on us. It looks funny, but by the end, it's not. All this is to influence us to grieve for the destruction of the temple and the exile from Israel 2,000 years ago. The temple was the place where you could get close to God, understand Him, connect to Him, and this infused the whole society with a heavenly serenity and purpose. It's impossible to describe after such a long absence, but to picture it, I guess it must have looked something like this. We lost it when we were exiled from Jerusalem to Babylonia, to Persia, to Rome and Egypt. But the experience of the temple was so intense that it gave us something, hard to describe, but something we could take with us. And so wherever we went, we were able to establish vibrant and successful centers of Jewish culture and scholarships that made a difference. To appreciate the power of the temple influence, consider what happened to the unfortunate Africans who were also exiled from their land and dispersed to a similar number of destinations. They did not establish centers of success, but it was not their fault because they didn't have the benefit of a temple experience. They didn't carry with them a memory of a temple. Tisha B'Av means the 9th of Av, and Av is the 11th Hebrew month. So Tisha B'Av is the original 9/11. Our trauma was much worse than the recent 9/11. We lost more than 2 billions, and it has lasted over 2,000 years. What does all this have to do with hate? Hating our ancient enemies? No. Starting from that time and continuing ever since, our teachers have told us that this destruction was our fault. And the reason God hasn't corrected this destruction is because we still have the same fault. Our teachers named this fault Sinat Chinam. In the English-speaking world, Sinat Chinam is translated as baseless hatred. If we would just get rid of baseless hatred, we could get back the temple and everything glorious about it. So that's the connection of hate back to the temple and the 3 weeks that grieve its loss. But baseless hatred means there's no reason for the hatred. It's irrational. Who are these people who hate for no reason? Not too many, because irrational behavior is self-destructive behavior. They won't last. Question 1 is, why should everyone suffer because of these few? Look at this boss who made a mistake and blames everyone else. It's not fair. Question 2 is, how can we hope to correct irrational behavior? Who can teach irrational people? It escapes us where to begin. An even bigger question, is that all we need to establish a golden spiritual age that deserves a temple? We just have to get rid of baseless hatred? What about all the other faults that we know we have? We don't have to get rid of them before we rebuild the temple? Doesn't make sense. So most people answer no. It doesn't mean that level of baselessness. It means the people who hate without a good reason. But who's that? Not me, everyone will say. Sure, I hate, but believe me, I have a very good reason. It's the other guy over there who doesn't have a good reason. He's the problem. You see, everyone points their finger at the next guy and never changes their own behavior. Remember Anthony Weiner? He was famous for pointing at other people when he really had quite a few faults of his own. So the idea of baseless hatred doesn't get us anywhere. It's the wrong target. Without the proper target, we'll never aim for the right solution or even direction. The calendar will keep going for another 2,000 years, and we won't even understand why. So let's look at the source of the Torah scroll that talks about Sinat Chinam, about hate. The verse is Leviticus 19:17. The New International Version translates it as, do not hate a fellow Israelite in your heart. Rebuke your neighbor frankly, so you will not share in their guilt. Speaking of something in our heart, notice that this comes in Leviticus, which is right after Genesis and Exodus, and followed by Numbers and Deuteronomy, because it is number 3 of the 5 books of Moses, the Jewish Torah scroll, which is the heart of the Torah, right in the center. More accurately, this is found in Leviticus chapter 19. There are 27 chapters in Leviticus, so reading right to left, because that is the way Hebrew is read, right to left, chapter 19 takes us a little past the center, which would be chapter 13 and a half, to the left of it, which is right where we find our heart, our own heart, in our body, a little to the left of center. So in a sense, the heart of the Torah is talking to our heart. Leviticus is Latin. It means Levi plus something. I'm no expert in Latin, but I know Levi is the name of the Jewish tribe who conducted the temple service. The rest of the Jewish people were hardly allowed in. So Leviticus must mean Levi plus focus, because the text starts with and continues to focus on the services of the Holy Temple. That's why they named the book Leviticus. But the heart of this book hints at how temple service impacted interpersonal relations like hate and love. The Jewish name for Leviticus is Vayikra, as you can see here in English letters. The Hebrew letters are just above it. I want to show you how the word Vayikra is written in the Torah scroll. It is this first word in the top right corner. Notice the last letter is written small. It is the same as the first letter of the next word, but is always small just in this instance. The reason for that is a whole different topic than the one I want to focus on here. I show it to you only to demonstrate how God uses so many different devices to embed messages into the text. The Yikra means he called, which is a sure start for a relationship. In this case, it is God calling Moses, to describe the temple relationship. But as we will see, at the heart of it all is our own relationships. The Torah text we quoted earlier is part of a triad. Leviticus 19:16 reads, using the New International Version, "Do not go about spreading slander among your people. Do not do anything that endangers your neighbor's life. I am the Lord." Verse 17 we have already read. Verse 18 reads, "Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord." Of these three verses, the last is the most famous because it contains love your neighbor as yourself, which was repeated several times in the New Testament. It's actually famous the whole world over because many belief systems have a variation of that saying. The rabbis tell us the most powerful of the three verses is the first one, because it contains, "Do not go about spreading slander among your people." The rabbis teach us there are three forms of slander: gossip, tattling, and fake news. This famous Norman Rockwell picture depicts how gossip spreads so easy. Tattling doesn't refer to kids, but to adults, particularly in business settings, who reveal each other's faults. And fake news is just malicious lies about others. Tattling is the worst form because it is true, and so the most harmful. It is considered as evil as the three worst crimes of murder, immorality, and idol worship, which makes it pretty bad. However, we want to concentrate on the middle verse, which is the heart of the three. Does it really make sense? Do not hate a fellow Israelite in your heart. Fellow Israelite. Are other people okay to hate? In your heart.
Take that
Can you
down.
hate with another organ? Rebuke your neighbor frankly, so you will not share in their guilt. Rebuke. If you can't hate anyone, what's that a rebuke? In their guilt, we're speaking about a single neighbor. Why the plural there? In fact, this may be the most important question because it points out how easily it is for errors to creep into the translation and corrupt the meaning or hide the intended implications. We will see that fellow Israelite is also a translation error because it hides other meanings. We will also see that in your heart and rebuke are reasonable translations that lead to deeper thoughts. Let's look at the original Hebrew text, which I'm showing you now. There are three phrases in the verse. Here I have color-coded them with English characters so you can read them with me in a moment. Before reading, I want to show you some poetry embedded in this verse. The first and third phrases have rhymes. In red, we can see lotisna and velotisa. The words have totally different meanings, but connect through rhyme. In brown underline, we see toward the end of the first line, levav, and a love at the end of the last line. Again, rhyme connections. Look at the last word. It's not chet, but chet. It's a guttural sound. Hard for English speakers to pronounce unless they are familiar with the German Achtung or the Yiddish chutzpah. The convention has evolved to use ch to represent that ch sound. As you can see, there are a lot of ch's in the verse, which reads like this: Lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha hocheach tocheach et amitecha velo tisa alav chet. I don't think there's an animal that pronounces the ch sound. It may be uniquely human, perfect for a verse describing human emotions, but more important, ch comes from the back of the throat. That means it is a sound, probably it's the only sound that comes from the deepest part of you, another poetic way of resonating with the inner you. There are two Hebrew letters that make this ch sound, which leads to a fascinating insight. The first of these letters is the first ch sound here, ach, and it means brother or sister or close relative. While the second ch sound, the second letter, is used to make the second ch sound, cha, which is Hebrew for your. And this is where you first start learning hate and love and other interpersonal relations from those closest to you over the issues of what is mine and what is yours. Remember, the New International Version translated your brother as fellow Israelite, which lost the common human experience conveyed by the original. Let's go to the last word here, chet. The New International Version translated it as guilt, as I showed earlier. The New King James Version translates it as sin, but really it means error, missing the mark, which for humans is a type of sin. Alexander Pope coined the famous phrase, to err is human, to forgive divine. So error is a very good word to use in a verse talking about human interpersonal relations. From all these features, we can see how the verse poetically pulses with the human condition. Now we have to pay attention to the Hebrew literally and linearly as the words appear. The first instruction is, don't you hate a brother of yours in the heart of you. The second is cause rebuke. You shall rebuke the citizen of yours. And the third is, and don't you raise on him an error. Now you may have noticed that there are no punctuation marks in the Torah scroll, but punctuation marks make a difference in meaning. The ancient teaching is that the punctuations can vary because different punctuations can support more than one message from the same words. So what if we put a colon at the end of the first phrase and two question marks in the second instruction? Then it would read, don't you hate a brother of yours within the heart of you? Cause rebuke? Shall you rebuke a citizen of yours? With this punctuation, it takes on a whole new meaning. In plainer English, it then becomes, don't you hate a good fellow citizen? Rebuke? Shall you rebuke a citizen of yours? Of course not. Why do you even mention it? Because we also have to look at the flip side. Only a good citizen you shall not hate. What about bad citizens? People who disrupt your brotherhood? Not only regular criminals, but also drunk drivers, who know they have a problem but don't deal with it, derelict dads who don't pay attention to the family they created, terrorists who want to destroy society. There's so many examples, and every one of them has to be forcefully opposed. The verse is telling you that we can't afford to ignore such behavior. We have to forcefully rebuke it. But the verse also says one last thing. Do not bear a sin because of him. That means don't take the law into your own hands, because then you become what they are, not a good citizen, a criminal. So there is a place for hate. But there's another way to read the verse. What if sinah doesn't mean hate here? True, if you look up the Hebrew English dictionary, you will see sinah, hate for sinah, and if you look up hate, you'll see sinah. But Torah words have more than one translation or meaning. Hate is a very intense form of sinah.
Going on the left side.
There are also lesser forms of sinah. For example, resent. Resent is much less than hate. Someone you hate, you want to fight, you want to punish for what they did to you, and worse. Someone you resent, like someone who bucks in line or is too loud, you don't want to fight or punish. Just get them to behave better. It's less than hate. So if we drop in the word resent instead of hate, it leads us to translate other phrases differently as well. Instead of in your heart, we would put silently, because we are using our heart instead of our mouth. And now, instead of cause a rebuke, we might translate create a rebuke, because when someone is offending you, you have to be very diplomatic on how you let them know that. In fact, that leads to a different translation for the third phrase. It becomes, so you don't rise over him in a sinful manner, which would be a sin of embarrassment. This is the verse that forbids us to embarrass somebody. Putting it into modern idiom, don't bottle it in. Diplomatically rebuke a fellow citizen so as not to embarrass him or her. In fact, error is a good alternate translation, because when we embarrass someone, we probably make an enemy for life. And that is a personal error, which is really hard to get over. And it's what a sin is all about. It doesn't go away so easy. Remember all the threes mentioned earlier. Leviticus, the third book, the three verses, the three phrases in our verse, and the three worst sins. Oh, and I almost forgot, we started with the 3 weeks. There's a Jewish version of Trinity that I discovered, which explains why there's so many threes. And I'm pointing them out to pique your interest and whet your appetite for the Jewish version of Trinity, which I'll present in a future session, but also to introduce a third meaning of sinah from that Hebrew English dictionary, less intense than hate and less than resent. Have you ever met someone new and within the first 30 seconds you decide they're not your type? You have no desire to get to know them? Of course you have. Everybody does this. You don't hate them or even resent them. You just don't like them. If asked, why aren't they your type? You would answer, I don't know. They just aren't. Let's translate the verse under this scenario. Drop in dislike instead of hate, and with instead of in. With the heart of you means all your likes and dislikes, which come from the talents and disabilities you were born with and acquired along the way, that lead to memories and habits that support the talents and suppress the disabilities. In short, the entire package hidden within you. The next line becomes half question and half exclamation. Cause rebuke? Rebuke yourself. Why? What's the problem? That's it. If you don't know, it is baseless. Baseless dislike. The problem of Silat Chinam that took away the temple is not baseless hatred. It's baseless dislike. We have to overcome baseless dislike. The Torah is warning us not to disconnect from someone for no reason. Genesis 1:27 teaches us that every human is made in the image of God. That means that every human is the crowning glory of creation. If we meet a new person and can't take the time or interest to connect with them in even a small way, to just appreciate a little bit what is unique about them, a special creation of God, then why do we need a temple? The temple is a place where we can get close to God, understand Him from that closeness, connect to Him, our Creator. How can we deserve to get close to God Himself? Never mind deserve. How can we have the ability to get close if we don't yet have the ability to connect in a small way with one of His favorite creations, a fellow human? Remember the most famous of the three verses? I have one last question. Why was it last? It should have been first, as the general headline. The answer is that all the previous steps were prerequisites to get there. It's time to summarize. The Torah provides a promising pathway through human challenges of hate, when not, when necessary, resent, and how to negotiate it, and dislike, how it is ignored, and why it should not be. Dislike may be the easiest place to start improving. It is certainly the most widespread. With these eye-opening insights, we at least have a proper target to shoot for. And even if we still miss, because it is very far away, we'll be able to say for the first time, I landed closer than ever before, and then we'll have the right to ask God to move the target a little closer to us. Isn't that what we mean by rebuilding the Holy Temple? My name is Shlomo Schwartz, and I have written Jewish teachings for Christians and other good people. It's available on Amazon. Subscribe to receive notice of other videos like this. That was it. So Dan, I don't know, is Grace still with us?
Perhaps I can help you, Chuck. I think the election was a victory for good government. It might also be called a victory for propaganda.
Right. Okay, good. We also had I had on my screen something playing on the left-hand side was from yours. I don't know what was going on. There was a bunch of flashing through different screens. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Oh yeah, I noticed that. It just really, I do a ton of editing, so I mean, yeah,
Right.
cleaning all that stuff up or cropping it out or centering it and all that. Yeah, I do that sort of stuff all the time. If you're not paying attention, yeah, you gotta make sure your pixels are filled properly for sure.
Okay. So
anyways, I wanted to ask a question there, because when it comes down to the simple dislike,
yeah.
In my job as security, I mean, I have to deal with some unsavory characters,
Mhm.
and I had a confrontation yesterday with a couple that was, smoking heroin on, on our private property, and I asked them to leave. I told them, they had to leave. They were on private property, and they got very belligerent and not just argumentative. Violent. And I find that there's this test of fortitude. Is part of the job, though. I know it's a thankless position, but the point is that when I'm dealing with something like that,
No, that's the
in their eyes, they're seeing it as baseless. And
No. You can't account for what other people see it, but your reaction is hate. You have to disapprove of what they're doing. First of all, it's your job, and secondly, it's just normal and natural that you're smoking heroin, you're deteriorating society standards. You want to smoke drugs, so do it in the privacy of your own premises. There's no reason to go out in public.
It's been decriminalized here, so they're allowed to carry it, and a certain amount of it, and so then they
it's been decriminalized, but it still hasn't been. It's not the normal behavior in a public place to smoke heroin.
Of course not.
And your job is to maintain the public order. So
Your job there is to hate them, to rebuke them. And this is the first part, is that there's three stages. And in the first stage, when someone's doing something wrong that's clearly wrong, you have a duty to first express the disapproval, that they should know that that's not the right thing to do, because otherwise they're going to think it's fine, which is exactly what, because nobody else has disapproved of them, so they take issue with you. But so you have to stand your ground and teach them that no, that there are people still that maintain a standard, and it may be a losing cause. I mean, that's exactly.
Okay, yeah. I mean, they can go, into the public park next door, and the point being is that
My point is,
I don't need to feel guilty for standing up.
You did the right thing. You do the right thing. You're standing up for the standard. This is your job, and this is the normal standard, that it's not right for them to do it anyways. So, which is why you've been asked to patrol and do this, to make sure that the common standard, is adhered to. So you have to tell them that's wrong, and you have to hate them. In other words, that hate is it's like, I'm opposed to you. I'm not approving that, and I'm letting you know that it's the wrong thing to do. You have to do it as diplomatically as you can, as meaningfully as you can, because the job is not to let it pour out of you. The job is to get them to behave, to turn their behavior around. So whatever smarts you can bring to the occasion to try and get that done, you do, and if you can't, you can't. But you're doing the right thing to carry out. Then there's the something less, where I said, well, like it wasn't legal, or maybe you want to go to the resent situation, where they're not doing anything illegal necessarily, but they're being a nuisance, and so you resent it. You also let them know, but if they're not a tyrant, they're not a criminal. So then you could just say, you rebuke them. You have to find diplomacy. You have to, but really, really, listen. I don't want you to get caught. I don't want you to be hauled up or made an example, maybe a newspaper photograph. You're better off going private. Not this is too public a place for you. Find some way to diplomatically encourage them to do it another way. That's the middle ground. The resent.
Well, thank you, Rabbi. I don't feel so bad about it any longer. But it's sometimes sticky situations.
I appreciate your dilemma, but definitely the mitzvah is telling you, God is telling you that no, there's occasions when you have to take your stand. There's criminals, you have to actually oppose them, and then there's nuisances. People are not behaving properly. Maybe that was this because it's not criminal, so maybe they're in the middle case. But you still have to tell them, I resent that. You don't have to bear it, especially it's your job. And but again, the advice is that if you watch the video, the pasuk, the verse says it. Don't embarrass them. You have to find diplomacy. You have to find a way to castigate others in a nice, friendly, helpful manner. You don't always feel like doing that, but we don't always feel like doing mitzvahs anyways. It's we have to find. We've got instructions, and we have to practice it so it comes by more naturally than otherwise. So it takes practice.
Rabbi, on YouTube, Guri says he loved the video, especially liked when he asked, "How can you desire to be close to God when you can't be close to one another here in this world?" It's quite a profound thought.
Yes. There's a lot of profundity in it. In that video, and I like to watch it over because I forget about it. It's and really that's I take pleasure in having discovered that the baseless hatred, which everybody uses, really is a baseless dislike, which is just because you meet somebody and just can't find common ground with them, and you stay around. And everybody's so interesting. In other words, everybody's got some redeeming feature that you can learn from. We don't always have the time, but at least have the interest. And if I had the time, I would speak to them. You have to develop that within yourself. But all these are challenges to us. These don't come naturally, and people tend to treat these situations on a natural basis. And like, for example, you were feeling guilty or whatever, feeling bad
Well,
that they
I didn't.
approach
Yeah,
you.
thankfully, it didn't escalate, but
No,
it
no,
very got very close.
right, but that's your natural. That's the natural. When you approach the situation with the power of the verse behind you, and you know exactly what you have to do, you understand that you're carrying out God's will, and you have to do it this way and that way, and try. And here's the target. You have to know where your target is. So the target is, in the case of hate, I have to oppose these people, whether I win or lose. I have to oppose them, and I have to try and get rid of them. Whereas in the case of resent, I have to try and bring them into my field of operations, get them to see how I see it, and maybe I'll see a little more how they see it, and we'll find common ground. And then the dislike is just to make some connection with somebody, to be able to develop that interest in each other.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Naturally, it
Yeah.
takes.
Grace, have you got any comments you wanted to add or any questions for the rabbi?
Hi, Dan. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah. Shalom laka, Rabbi. Manishma.
Baruch Hashem.
Yeah, so I was just listening about and watching about that video about the slandering, and I just had a question about, like, for example, in a place where where there is dislikes of a person, and then someone will come up to me and say something about her, and then I just listen, and then sometimes I commented something, and then you cannot like avoid it, in a place where every day is just kind of a normal to
You
have
can't.
some conversation. So
You can't
is
avoid
this
it. You can't avoid it. You can't avoid it. The rabbis teach us that the gossip and saying bad things about people kills three people. Kills
wow?
the person you're speaking about. It kills the person that spoke because they do such a crime, and it kills the person that listens because they give an audience. It's a terrible thing to live around. So you have to find. You can say, let's not talk about it. You can change the subject, or you can oppose it. Say, yeah, but there is something good. But usually, the best strategy is change the subject, or I have to go. I'm sorry, I gotta go. I just remembered something, and just don't give them an audience. And you'll come out feeling a lot better about yourself, and maybe they'll think about what they said. Maybe
Yeah.
they'll think about
Yeah,
what
they won't be as open to gossip the next time. Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
But it's the job on each of us to establish those guidelines, because if somebody's going to listen, I'm going to talk, because everybody wants attention. So and usually they think that everybody wants attention, so they say, oh, if I have a tidbit about somebody else, then I have what to share and I'll get my audience. And so if you deny
yeah,
the audience, you can start to teach people another way. It's not easy. Again, it's not easy, but this is why we have the verses, the instructions. So we wouldn't think of this on our own. Our natural impulse is to, yeah, let me hear.
Yeah, people try to avoid
so
confrontation, and it
so it
perpetuates
means,
it.
Rabbi, sorry, so it means, Rabbi, this kind of like gossiping slander is so dangerous
It
that
is.
you said that it kills the listener at the same time.
So, yeah,
Wow, I
very
don't know
dangerous.
that.
Yes. Because, first of all, because you can understand it, because you're participating, you're giving the audience. If they didn't have you as an audience, they wouldn't say it. So if you help somebody kill somebody, they're going to kill themselves, they're killing themselves, you're going to help them, so you're guilty as them in that sense. And also they're killing the person they're speaking about, because when somebody loses their reputation, everybody thinks they're a bad person, so that isolates them, and it's like they're dead, and it's like killing them. It's emotionally, you can kill a person like that. So we have to be very, very careful about here. Nobody's perfect, and everybody's got faults.
Yeah,
Let's concentrate on each other's good points, not the bad points.
yeah. Thank you, Rabbi.
It's a big issue. It's a big issue. It's not a not
It's
easily
not a
done.
light matter.
But yeah, and there's books written on it. And I was very fortunate to have somebody teach me these books when I was very young, and I got into it. So I appreciate it, because if you don't hear about it until you're older, it's a little hard to incorporate.
You develop patterns by then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So,
Rabbi, I
no,
want to thank you for today's lesson. Now, we're not going to be back until next Sunday
next Sunday.
because of Tish B'Av this week. And I hope the video helped you folks understand a little bit about what that was about, or will be about. And Rabbi Schwartz, we wish you a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Sunday.
Yes. Thank you. At 9:00, we'll send. Okay.
Next. All right, Grace. Thanks for coming. Yeah, I always open the Zoom room a half hour early, so I'm always in there early. So it's just a question of making sure and notice when you jump in and give you admittance. So yeah, folks, I'm going to sign out on our YouTube page for our Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz. So we'll see you next Sunday. Bye for now.